nowhere to hide. There's nothing but darkness left here. Shake it off and let's take a ride. 'Cause heaven's not far away, and I'm not gonna leave you here.
Very much a part of their culture and a part of what it means to pass on to the next generation. They would take them to the sights and the sounds of the temple. They would take them to the sacrifices. They would take them to the temple to worship. Remember in New Testament, when we take a look in the New Testament, Jesus at 12 years old was taken to Jerusalem as a young boy to bring sacrifice and to worship for the Passover. And so all these children grew up knowing of a living God that was passed on to them from their parents. So it was the duty of the Hebrew parent. It was the duty of the Hebrew parent to pass on the faithfulness of God to the next generation. So when we take a look at Psalm 78, let's just take a few observations here of Psalm 78, and then we're going to go ahead, break it down, and then we're going to go see how that is applied to us today. In reading this passage, a few words speak out to me or stand out to me. And if you have your Bible here, and I hope you have your Bible here. I hope it's open. And if you want to highlight, make sure you highlight, okay? If you have it on your device, highlight your device, not with a pen or anything, but highlight it, okay? But highlight it because there's some interesting points in here, observations that we want to go over. First one is, will not hide. Will not hide. Tell to the coming generation the glorious deeds of the Lord. Another observation, teach to their children that the next generation might know them. Children yet unborn. Another observation, and tell them to their children. It's really interesting when you take a look at this passage. Not only is the author dealing with the parent, responsibility of the parent, but also the responsibility of grandma and grandpa and the grandparent as well. That we have a responsibility to teach and to pass on the commands of the Lord. Now, in reference to what Psalm is saying here, the commands or the law is referring that to the Ten Commandments or the laws that were written within the book of Leviticus. And so those books or those commands was a responsibility to pass on to the next generation. To let the people know, let the children know what it means to put God first and to love Him with all their heart. So why? Why was this important to them? Why was this important for that generation? And what can we take out of this? Because as we begin a new year, we have a responsibility. The challenge in the title of this sermon is this, is building family's legacy. What type of legacy do you want to leave, mom and dad? Grandparents, what type of legacy do you want to leave? A great example of what happens when a generation, us, is silent, and what happens to the next generation. If you put up on the board here, Judges. You don't need to turn there if you don't want to. If you want to, you can. But it says in Judges. In Judges 6, we have Moses prior to Judges. Moses in Deuteronomy closes up shop, okay, I guess. He's coming at the end of the 40 years, wandering in the desert for 40 years with the Israelites. He comes to where he's buried by God. He then names his successor, who's Joshua. Joshua goes ahead and leads the people through the promised land. They get settled, and then we come into the book of Judges. And what's interesting about Judges is that it gives us an insight into what happens, like I said, when we're silent. After Joshua had dismissed the Israelites, they went to take possession of the land, each to their own inheritance. The people served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him. And once again, these were the people that, were in the desert, came over with Joshua. For some of you, if you remember the story, they wandered around 40 years until one generation passed away. New generation grew up and was ready to move into the promised land. These were the generation that saw the great wonders of God and what God did for them. Goes on. Joshua and the elders who outlived him and who had seen all the great things the Lord had done for Israel. Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110. And then they buried him in the land of his inheritance at Timnath-Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. And this is where I want you to take a gander at here. After the whole generation had been gathered to their ancestors, another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. Then the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served the Baals. Now, some of those worship of the Baals even include children's sacrifice. That's how far they had turned away from God. Children's sacrifice. Other forms of rituals that we won't go into, but it was literally turning their backs on God. Let's continue on. It says, then the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, served Baals. They forsook the Lord, the God of their ancestors, who had brought them out of Egypt. They followed and worshiped various gods of the peoples around them. They aroused the Lord's anger because they forsook him and served Baal and the Asherahs. A generation that was silent. Father and mother, as I said earlier, you are the greatest influence in your child's life. Grandma and grandpa, you're right behind them. You have a great opportunity to impact somebody's life in such a short time. And as you know, if you have children that have grown up, moved out, you know what I'm going to say when I say this. It goes by too quick. It goes by really fast, doesn't it? When we take a look at them and we're holding them in our arms, and then bam, that's it, they're gone. I still remember the day, the nights when I held the girls in my arms when I carried them to bed, thinking, oh my gosh, this is probably the last time I'll be able to do this, because they're getting too heavy. And then I plop them on my back, and carry them up the stairs. And I remember saying, oh my gosh, I won't be able to do this any longer, Do you remember those days? It goes by quick, doesn't it? We have such a short time to be able to impact our children's lives. Do not miss the opportunities to share your life wisdom with them, you guys. Don't. You want to impact someone's life? Start with your children. Start with your children. In my career as a teacher and as a pastor, it breaks my heart sometimes when I see parents that just enroll their kids into a Christian school. Say, you could go ahead and teach them the spiritual life. Or just drop them off at youth group and say, you teach them the spiritual life. Coming from my side, can I just be honest with you? That breaks our heart. Because you see, it starts with you. Well, I was kind of quiet, Scott. It's kind of quiet. It starts with you. You are the spiritual leaders of their lives. You want to build a legacy? It starts with you. You want to build that spiritual legacy? It starts with you. I always tell my parents every year that I'm there to partner with them. I'm not there to lead them. Oh yeah, there's moments and times that God opens opportunities for me to speak into the lives of their children. And those are awesome, rich times. But if it's not being lived at home, we have such a great opportunity to impact our children's lives. And so this morning, I'm just going to share with you 3 things that's kind of helped us in our family to be able to go ahead and lay down and share to the next generation. Just 3 simple things. that each and every one of you can do. And maybe this year, 2015, will be different. It'll be a change. You will go ahead and change your family tree for the rest of your life. Amen? Okay, because like I said, we're all here, we're all learning how to get through life, right? Okay, we don't have all the answers and we're not perfect, but we're learning how to get through life. And I believe that God gives us opportunities to change those branches in our family trees. Okay? Because maybe we've experienced, oh man, it was rough. I was abused. I was this. Or, I was, whatever. You can fill in the blank. That does not mean you have to live that way. That does not mean your children have to live that way. You can change. Does that make sense? So here we go. First one. Okay? First one.